Welcome to Inside the Director Circle. In this episode on increasing business value, top tips and the untold secret of business value that I want to share with the listeners today. I'm Jason Langford Brown, founder of the Director Circle and practicing business advisor and coaching psychologist. In the last episode, we looked about the notion of increasing business value and actually being ready to exit and sell from the early stages. We're going to expand on that today, but really move into, so as I said, talking about some top tips that will give you some practical guidance on how to go on this journey. But as always, we like to bring in one of our knowledge partners from the Director Circle, and delighted again to be joined by Chasz Coulsting, Director of Corporate Finance at Crowe UK, one of the UK's leading audit, tax, risk and financial advisory firms. Chasz, I think, as I mentioned to those that listened to the last podcast, early in his career worked in insolvency, but now has over 12 years experience in the corporate finance space. So just before we get into the conversation, just remember this is just a snapshot of what happens within the business leader community at the Director Circle. So if you want to get more involved or gain further insights, visit directors-circle.com. Chasz, great to have you back with us again. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be back.
The first podcast was really insightful. We talked a lot about, the notion of increasing business value and being ready for exit and sell, and actually obviously the need to start early. And you talked a lot about, how it increases the options for business leaders looking to sell their businesses, but also increases the money they're likely to be able to recoup, reducing the time it takes. And I think that for me, the most powerful insight from the last podcast was how it can really help you map it to your own life journey and life plan, which I think, we have to remember there's human beings in this. So I think, could we just start today, just talking through when you get a really good engagement from a firm that kind of engages with you early, kind of what that journey would typically look like, and maybe with some sort of actual examples of specifically what that might be and how it will change as we move towards exit and sell at the end.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course, it's a great place to start at the beginning. So, I guess last time we touched on a bit, kind of, I guess the frustrations of business owners who approach us quite late in the process and want a quick sale. But where we have and we have quite a lot of clients who think ahead and want to plan their exit from their business, and that's quite a good position for us to be in, and even better for the client, really. So I guess a first meeting with the client really in one of those situations would actually probably just be, as you say, understand the human aspect. So really, first meeting would be really to understand, what do they want out of life? It's not really about selling the business at all. It's sort of, what they want out of life, and that would drive, when perhaps they should think about selling from their business, and I guess what time frame that looks like, and therefore putting the plan in place around that. And I guess I cover things from a CF angle, so from actually selling businesses. But I guess we, as a firm, Crowe, cover multiple other aspects. So I guess we have a personal tax team who can look at the kind of, again, I guess, the personal tax implications that go with that desired life plan, really. So I guess that's where we start, really, and once you've got kind of that life aspiration, or you've settled on that, and that is allowed to change. Well,
that just to stop your flow for a second, I think that is such a powerful point you probably don't realize, because I can't tell you how many business leaders will resist looking at things early because I don't want to plan my life out for the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. And my response is, all I'm saying is plan it out as you see it today. If next week you want to change it, it's okay, it's your life. So I think that point about it's allowed to change is a really good point, because it is astounding how many people almost push back on thinking ahead because they don't want to map their life out, because if it's once they've done it, they can't change it. Sorry, I called over you there.
Go for it. That's a great point, because just because you've got a plan doesn't, well, you stick to it if you want to have the same goal potentially, but it doesn't mean that the plans can't change. So I think we start off with I guess the ambition, and then we put a plan in place. So from my perspective, I think we're typically looking at when that exit will happen and trying to increase value at that point in exit. So and value to a business owner may not be monetary entirely. So I guess part of part of understanding the aspirations is also understanding, what does value actually mean to them. So I think a lot of this talk we'll go through and talk about the monetary aspects, but let's cover off the non-monetary aspects first. So business owners might be very proud of their particular brand that they've built and will want to sell to someone who will want to continue that brand and not subsume their brand within the larger brand of a buyer. They may also be, they may also work with their staff for 20, 30 years and be very keen for a buyer who will look after their staff and not make a huge number of rationalization savings immediately on completion. So kind of planning for the kind of trying to increase value there, it's kind of you're helping them try to identify particular buyers who we know will respect those aspects, because I guess we've had experience of selling to different buyers and we know how different buyers like to integrate the acquisitions post deal. So some will want to make it or look and feel the same as their current brand, whereas others like to have a lot of, I guess, what they call local hubs or local heroes, I guess, acting almost as a franchise, but as a kind of a corporate model. So, so I guess it's sort of part of that planning then can be, looking at those particular buyers' buying cycles and making sure that whatever plan we do put in place, that we're ready to go to market to sell the business to kind of, I guess, fit in with those sort of cycles. However, a lot of business owners are probably their top priority is probably maximizing monetary value. So how do you increase the price of a business? And I think in our first episode we touched upon a lot. A key part of that is the management, because it increases the pool of buyers, and with an increased pool of buyers you get increased competition, therefore price, and also the readiness of the business as an asset for the buyer. But there are obviously a number of other key value drivers in the business, and so I guess we'll have that first chat with a business owner, understand what their aspirations are, and then what we can help them do is to help them draw up a plan. So say they want to sell the business in 3 years time. We'll understand kind of, I guess, what they want the value to be for the business when they exit in 3 years time. So what we'll probably do to begin with is perhaps do a quite informal valuation of the business today. Let's say if you were to sell it today, what would you roughly expect to be able to get? And they'll either go, well, I'm quite happy with that, so we'll just bumble along, have a few tips from you, and we'll sell in 3 years time when we want to sell. Or they'll say, oh, actually we wanted twice that amount. So then how do you go about increasing the value of a business? And there's lots of different valuation metrics for businesses, and there's no one right answer, because different buyers will see different value, a different value for a business, because they may have different synergies, i.e. their brands or their products may align more closely or have better integration. So some buyers may inherently, want to pay more for business than others. But there are two key metrics that tend to influence business valuations, and that is a term called EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, which is basically the profitability of your business. But it's the profitability of your business stripping out some, I guess, some accounting adjustments. The idea is that EBITDA as a profit adjustment is closer to your cash profit. That's the idea, at least, anyway. For certain businesses, it may not be the right measure, but not trying to make it too complicated today. And the other thing, and I guess the other metric is, I guess the multiple of profit they will pay. So that multiple of EBITDA that they will pay for the business, and largely the multiple is the more subjective item, because the profit is the profit, and the multiple will depend upon what the buyer's willing to pay, what industry it is, and the strength of your business. So I guess the question that business owners have is actually, what can I actually do to influence, my valuation? So the first thing is, I guess, the profitability is the easy one, I guess, for them to, or the more tangible one for them to influence. So they can increase their profitability by taking on more work, but there definitely is a focus. One of the things that we say is a definite focus there to focus on good profit margin work, because I think as the saying goes, there's no point being a busy fool, as you can have a lot of turnover and not produce much profit, and generally that won't add much to your valuation. I mean, unless there are exceptions to this. So technology businesses tend to be based upon their recurring revenue streams, but I guess for the majority of business owners, that probably won't apply. So then I guess we come to the kind of the second metric, really, the multiple, and this is I guess it's the more intangible one, but what can you do to influence your multiple? It's kind of really it's the strengthening of your business. So I guess if one of the key questions business owners can ask themselves is, if I were to buy my own business, and sometimes they find it hard to separate themselves. So maybe we ask, if you were to buy another business in the industry, we just pick up another sample that we've researched. It's actually kind of what the key kind of USPs you'd be looking for them to have, the key strengths. What opportunities are there in the industry? And I guess that's the second point, sorry. I mean, what opportunities as well are there current industry which are available to be grabbed? And does your business currently have the capability to service those needs? I guess another key thing which can influence upon multiple is, I guess, does your business have a unique or an original product that serves a certain purpose that your competitors don't? Is there something that sets you apart?
I've heard that described by some big PE and venture capitalists as, are you a vitamin or are you a painkiller?
Yeah.
Because if you're a painkiller, like people need you. If you're a vitamin, it's a nice to have, but not necessary. And it's easy to sell. And I think VCs and Ps prefer to buy painkillers or they'll pay more money for a painkiller than they will for a vitamin.
Absolutely, yeah. When there's absolute need, they will. Yeah.
Just to sort of jump in on a couple of those things, Chasz, there's some really good stuff in there. But I think really good that you took some time to explain the kind of the EBITDA multiple. I think many leaders have heard that a number of times, but I think you're right. I think EBITDA is ultimately profit with some accountancy stuff that you understand better than we do. But the multiple, and even in this last couple of weeks, I've had a number of conversations with some of my clients around their aspiration for multiple, and in the sectors they're in, well, quite honestly, they're delusional. So that's interesting. But I think it does. I think we're going to talk about some top tips and some other things that I wanted to share with you. But it does. I think you're right. All business leaders can hone in on, if we can scale our business profitably, then we can increase the value. I mean, I think that's pretty universal. But I like the bit you said at the beginning of that last piece, where that kind of where you are today versus what your aspiration is. And I think that's where I see some of the biggest challenges with business leaders is, they often have a number in mind, and they are nowhere near it today. So I think, again, it's another reason to start early, isn't it? But I that's the conversations I had. It's kind of like, you want to put £5 million in your pocket, and by the way, you have to pay tax first, so it's more than £5 million. But the reality today is you're only worth 2. So I think having that conversation really early with you guys, and to be honest, in a lot of my work, that's where I come in. It can be a 2, 3, 4 year journey to actually execute a plan to grow your business. But but you're absolutely right. There's a whole bunch of drivers in there that people need to think about in terms of what actually is going to strengthen you and what opportunities are out there. You just can't do it quickly, can you? It takes time to do it. I suppose just onto that. What what would be, I want to talk about some of those value drivers, probably in different contexts, which is kind of, I suppose, what are the things that when people are looking at a business and buying it that make them think this is a business that's good, valuable, not too risky. And I wonder if that leads into some of the top tips you would kind of share as a CF company with when you're working with clients early, in terms of these
Oh,
are some things you
absolutely.
should be thinking about early. Can you maybe lay some of those things down for us?
Yeah, so I think kind of things that if I was advising a buyer, or I was a buyer and was looking at a company and looking at I guess the strength of that business I was looking to acquire. So some of the key things I'd be looking at is the quality of the income. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess by the quality of the income I mean what is the customer base? Is there too much reliance on one customer, or if there is a heavy concentration, how solid is that customer? If it's a blue chip company that's been around for 100 years, then it's probably a decent customer to do business with. And I guess the concentration, there isn't as much of a concentration risk, or that concentration risk is mitigated. So I'd be looking at, like I said, the quality of the customers. I'd be looking at, I guess, the recurring nature of the revenue.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're looking at businesses that get orders that are one-off, a lot of one-offs, then that's very hard for a buyer to predict. Whereas if there's a recurring level of income coming from the business, which is either from being proved over 20 years of business relations, or is even better from a buyer's point of view, is secured via a long-term contract. That really helps in the buyer's mind to enhance the value of the business that they're looking at. I guess one of the other things, just looking at the other side of, again, sort of the strength of the supply chain of the business,
Mm-hmm.
who their suppliers are, how good are those relationships, how good are the contractual arrangements with those suppliers, and I guess what's the financial covenant or strength of those suppliers, because if one of those suppliers weren't able to supply a key component of the part or the product or the service, then that could impact on the business ability to deliver. And I guess as well, I get what a few things that we do recommend business to do, I guess, is what we call a health check, probably 2 years or 18 months before sale, really. So again, that health check really would cover areas that so some of the areas already mentioned, sort of kind of as key, I guess, sort of value creating areas, but also areas that by potentially due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's worth them doing a legal health check. So I guess it seems silly, but one of the things that lawyers check is do you actually own the shares you want to sell? So, or not do you own them, but can you prove that you own them? Have you got the share certificates,
Yeah,
etc.? Because you can look a bit, you come to do a deal, you can look a bit silly when you go, they start doing their legal diligence, and
yeah, yeah.
and then you don't. Well, I mean, it's never normally a deal breaker, but it helps to give confidence to the buyer. I guess the other thing is worth looking at is kind of, I guess, operational due diligence. So do you have proper health and safety procedures in place? Is there any asbestos in the building? And are there, can we quickly and easily deal with those issues now, as opposed to a buyer finding out in the middle of a deal and getting cold feet? I mean, I was involved in a fairly large deal with a PLC buyer a year or so ago. And essentially the PLC, there was a health and safety point, and this could bear in mind 8-figure deal.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled out because the health and safety risk was too much of a PR risk for them. So the
Yeah.
seller had to go away, put that right, before they were ready for market again, which obviously put back their sale aspirations by a year.
I think it's interesting as well. I see that you're right. I mean, the extreme people pull out, but I think probably more common for most people is that they'll just use it as a negotiating point to push the price down. That's probably the most common ploy, isn't it? That's what I see a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. We don't often see buyers pull out, but I guess it's a extreme example. It is worth getting your ducks in a row because, I mean, to put sale back by 12 months is not ideal, but neither is, I guess, having a price chip off what you thought it would be worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess the last area of health check is one that I guess we as Crowe would look at, which is kind of I guess your financial and tax health. So are you doing all your tax compliance and filings correctly, etc.? Because these can have price chip implications if things have not been done correctly in the past.
Yeah. I love the fact you're using health, and you kind of teed me up without realizing, Chasz, really, because I did say I kind of reveal a bit of an untold secret, I think, in this area. I do get frustrated sometimes, I think, with the obsession of particularly young business leaders who think they have to exit, or they have to, that's the only route of their business, and obviously you want them to exit because that's where you make your money. But my wealthiest client has never sold a business in his life. Because of course there is a choice. There's another choice, which is I just keep my businesses and run my businesses. But of course, to keep and run a business for a long time, and in this example I'm thinking in my head now, we're talking decades. Those businesses are incredibly healthy. So to go back to your point about health, so in my world, we'll work a lot with people on scaling and growing their businesses and making. So we talk about business health, organizational health. We talk about business improvement, and I think what I've learned through my corporate career and in my career now as an advisor is actually the levers and the factors are exactly the same. So this is the untold secret. So if you just focus, if you don't like to thinking about exit and all the things you're talking about and due diligence, just think about, if I want my business to be really successful and to endure and to give me the life I want for as long as possible, do the healthy things, make it healthy, and by the way, all those things will be what make it more ready for exit for people like you. And I think that's the bit of a every time I talk about this, I do talk about exactly the same thing. I just changed the label. Do you want to talk about exit? Do you want to talk about organizational health? It's the same thing. I'm just gonna contextualize it completely differently. So I think that's a message for people from me, really. I think.
No, I think I absolutely agree with you. It doesn't really matter whether you want to exit or not. I guess from my perspective, because I'm always looking at businesses that exit, we want them to be healthy before they exit. But you're quite right. If you're continuing in a business, you want it to be a healthy business as well. So those health checks can be done regardless of whether you're looking to sell or not.
But I do like, if you are looking at exit, I think doing we talk about, financial due diligence, commercial due diligence, that all comes at the sharp end of selling your business. And we do a lot of health check work from a more business improvement perspective. But you talking about doing some of those due diligence exercises 2 years out, I think I've not actually heard anyone put it that way before. I think that's really powerful. Uncover the gaps
we
early.
Kind of call it friendly due diligence.
Due diligence.
Because it's not done by the buyer. It's done by your own advisors. So it's not done in an adversarial and the time pressured environment. It's done at the client's own pace, and it's more to give them pointers to improve their business rather than to penalize them in the deal and reduce the price for certain points. So
absolutely.
So and it gives them then a year or two to rectify those business issues, or for us or for someone else to work with them to help still rectify those issues, any issues or I guess constructive points for improvement.
Again, with time on your side to put them right without squashing your value. So, Chasz, it's been great talking to you. As always, we try not to make these too long because business leaders are busy, but we could talk about this, I'm sure, for another 2 hours if we needed to. But I appreciate you joining us on this podcast and the last two. I think lots of really good takeaways there for our members. Next episode, we're going to make a bit of a segue. We're going to be joined by a clinical dietitian and nutritionist who does lots of work with business and leaders with the notion of how we can build our energy to lead and succeed. I think we're all under pressure from being busy and needing to be more productive. So we're going to take a bit of a different tact in the next couple of episodes. But in the meantime, if you want more on this subject, I'm sure you can reach out to Chasz. You'll find him on LinkedIn and all other good social networks, I'm sure. And obviously you can reach out to us at the Director's Circle. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to Inside the Director's Circle.